Hi, I'm Tina Divine, and thank you for watching my video. In this video, I wanted to talk about some of the out-of-pocket costs that buyers have to pay when they are purchasing a home. As we all know, you have to pay down payment and closing costs, and we know that down payment is paid at the beginning of the transaction. The closing costs are due when you are closing the transaction, but in between that, there are a number of fees that you have to pay. And these fees are due at the time of service. And that is what I wanted to talk about today. And let's get started. The first thing I wanted to talk about, and I'm going to briefly go over this, is down payment. So like I said earlier, we all know that down payment is due at the beginning of a transaction. But when you are buying a house, you don't have to pay your entire down payment all at once. So for example, let's say you're purchasing a home at $400,000 and you are a FHA buyer and your down payment is 3.5%. 3.5% of $400,000 is $14,000. You do not have to pay the entire $14,000 up front. You will pay maybe between $3,000 to $5,000 up front, and then the remaining balance of your down payment will be paid along with your closing costs. So you will have to bring a check to your attorney's office for the remaining balance of your down payment and whatever your closing costs are. Number two, inspections. So when you're purchasing a home, and especially when you're purchasing a home in New Jersey, there are a number of inspections that you will have to cover. One would be the normal home inspection, and you will have to pay for the home inspection either the day before, or you pay for it at the time of the home inspection. The home inspection costs will range. Low end, you're looking at maybe $350, $300 for a one-bedroom condo. High end, you're looking at about $500 to $600 for a multiple unit property, and that fee is paid directly to the home inspector. Now, you will have to check to see if your home inspector includes any other inspections, such as the inspection of wood destroying insects and a tank sweep. Usually the home inspection will not include a tank sweep, but the home inspection could include the wood destroying insects. It's something you definitely want to have because you want to make sure that there are no termites or any other type of insects that destroy wood in the home. If your home inspection does not include this inspection, you will have to pay for another inspector to come out and do that type of inspection. A wood destroying insect inspection will cost somewhere between $75 to maybe $150, and that's in addition to what you're already paying to the home inspector. Now, if the seller does not have any paperwork or any information concerning an underground oil tank, your attorney will urge you to have a tank sweep. And a tank sweep is when a technician comes out and they have like a sonar, almost it's like a really large metal detector basically, and they go through and they have other things that they look out for, but they use this machine to detect any underground oil tanks. The best case scenario is that they come out and there's no oil tank discovered, and then you still have to pay a fee. The tank sweep is going to range between $150 and $200, depending on the technician and the company. But if there is an oil tank detected, then you will have to pay for a soil testing, and the soil testing will be around the same price. It could be a little bit more, but either way, this is something that is very important because an underground oil tank can leak oil into the soil and create a environmental hazard. So this is something that you definitely want to pay and get the results of. One thing I wanted to add to the inspections and just in general about hiring different technicians that are going to be inspecting your home and just hiring your team, your attorney, your inspectors, your mortgage broker. You as a buyer, you want to make sure that you have a say in who you hire. Or oftentimes I get first-time buyers who are looking to just be told what to do. When you're purchasing a home, you're spending, you're borrowing hundreds of thousands of dollars. You're spending thousands, tens of thousands of dollars just to acquire this home. You need to have a say in who you work with. I had a person recently ask me for a one-stop shop deal. Like, they wanted to have me hire the home inspector for them, hire the attorney for them, hire, all of the people that's going to be needed to close the deal. And while that may seem like a good idea to a first-time home buyer, because you don't have to go through the trouble of calling and doing your research, it really isn't a good idea. And I know that there are a few real estate companies out there that promote this one-stop shop idea to their buyers. In theory, it sounds great and it seems like it'll work out well, but the reality is you never know where nepotism can come into play, and you never know who's related to whom. I can say use this home inspector, and that home inspector is my uncle, and that home inspector could be the worst home inspector in New Jersey. Or I may say use this attorney who's my brother-in-law, and he may be a horrible attorney. At the end of the day, your name is on a dotted line, and you're the one who's purchasing this home. So you need to do your own due diligence. What I typically do is I will refer different attorneys and mortgage brokers to my clients, but I always give 3 or 4 of each category. I'll give you 3 or 4 attorneys, 3 or 4 mortgage brokers, 3 or 4 home inspectors. Whatever the case is, you still need to do your own due diligence and make sure that you are working with someone that you are comfortable working with. The one-stop shop theory is just a theory and it sounds good, but at the end of the day, you want to make sure that you've talked to this person, you've interviewed them, you asked to talk to references, you read reviews on these individuals. You want to make sure that you're working with people who are up to par and handling the business within their own industry. The third item that you will have to pay for is an appraisal. The appraisal costs are going to range from maybe $500 to $800 to upwards of $1,500 to maybe $2,000. It all depends on the type of home you're purchasing, and it depends on your mortgage lender. Appraisals are hired by the mortgage lender through a third party, so we never know who the appraiser is until it's time to get the home appraised. But you should be ready to have to pay a few $100s to have the home appraised. The fourth item I wanted to go over is insurance. In New Jersey, you cannot close a real estate transaction without having homeowners insurance. Homeowners insurance is mandatory. So before your transaction can close, you have to have a policy, and the mortgage company is going to want to see a receipt that you paid for this policy. The homeowners insurance will run you between $1,200 to $1,500 for the year. If the house is in a flood zone or partially in a flood zone, then you will have to pay additional monies for flood insurance. Last but not least is city inspections. Now, city inspections is typically paid by the seller, but in today's real estate world where it's super competitive for buyers, sellers are putting houses on the market in as-is condition, and sellers are requiring the buyers to cover the city inspections. Now, the city inspections themselves aren't too expensive. Every city is going to have a different fee schedule for the city inspections. But the problem with city inspections is that there could be violations. And if the buyer is responsible for the city inspections, then the buyer may also be responsible for cleaning up all of the violations. So depending on the city you're in, the city inspections, which include the code officer from the building department in that city and the fire department. Now, the code officer or the building inspector, they charge a fee based on a number of units you're purchasing. So if you're purchasing a condo, that's 1 unit. If you're purchasing a 2-family house, that's 2 units. A 3-family house is 3 units, 4, 5, and so on. And usually it's around $100 a unit, depending on the city. Every city is different. But if it's $100 a unit and you're buying a 2-family house, then it's a $200 fee for the city inspection, for the code inspection. And then the fire department, their fee is usually a flat fee. So it's either $75 or $100 for the fire department to come out and do their inspection. And like I said, the fee isn't too expensive, but if there are violations, then you would have to pay additional money to have those violations cleared up. I have a quick story. I sold a 3-unit house in Orange, New Jersey, like maybe 2 years ago. It was a first-time buyer, and the buyer was responsible for the city inspections. So the city inspections were around $250 to $300 for the city and the fire inspection, but there were 3 pages of violations. And we negotiated, and the lender will not close the deal with those violations in place. The seller would not fix the violations. So my buyer, being a first-time buyer and all, had to clear up all those violations. And he spent probably an additional $7,000 just getting all those violations cleared up so that we can then close the transaction. So also I wanted to point out is that once the violations are cleared up, city inspector comes back out to ensure that all of the violations have been corrected and cleared, and then they give another report showing that there are no violations in the property, and then we can get what is called the certificate of occupancy, and then after that we can actually close on the transaction. I really wanted to point out the city inspection part because I'm seeing that a lot often right now, especially because we're in a seller's market and there's so many buyers on the market and so many buyers are competing for the same home that sellers are actually selling as is, and they are requiring buyers to cover the city inspections, and that is something that you need to be made aware of. You may have to come out of pocket for a larger amount of money just to close the transaction. The city inspections usually take place towards the end of the transaction. So, you know, if it was at the beginning and you find out that there are all these violations, you may just want to walk away from the transaction altogether. But at the point where the city inspections come up, you're so invested in this deal that in most cases, the buyer just go ahead and pay to have everything corrected prior to closing just so that they can close the transaction. I hope this information was useful. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, definitely reach out to me. I'm always here to help. You can ask questions in the comment sections below, or you can reach me via my email address, which will be in the comment box. If you are in need of a real estate agent, you can definitely reach out to me. I am here to help in any way possible. Thank you and have a good night.